Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here for a first look breakdown of the NFL Week 10 main slate on Draftkings. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports, daily fantasy sports slates. Before we get into the video, I want to thank you guys again for all support. It is greatly appreciated. The videos, the live streams, as well as on Twitter. The easiest way to support me, since all the content is free, is leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. As always, I'll be live streaming for the main slate 1 hour before lock on my YouTube channel, going over everything, answering all your guys' questions. Also, if you guys cannot watch the videos, I do upload an Apple Podcast. The link is in the description below. It's just the DK DFS show. I do want to mention, too, we have a lot of content coming out. Obviously, the NFL videos basically every single day. Masters, golf this week. We have $1 million to first. I will have a video for that up later today. Be on the lookout for that. Also, Monday Night Football Showdown slate. We do have a million maker for that one as well. I know it's ugly, Jets Patriots, but I'll be live. I have a video up for that, and I will be live 30 minutes before lock later today if you guys are interested in that. So, with that all out of the way, let's jump into the video. Before we talk about players and the prices for Week 10 slate, let's look back on the lineup from Week 9. So, last week was the week of the weather. Yesterday was, I guess, the week of injuries and tilt. So, let's go over my lineup. Derek Carr, quarterback, Connor, Cook, Keenan Allen, Mooney, Blake, Waller, Edmonds, and the Giants D. Told you guys I really haven't been playing much cash games. I play like the higher dollar single entry tournaments, so normally my approach is, play a chalkier build but get different in a few spots. That's kind of what I did here. The running backs, so Cook obviously was a smash. James Conner, don't even get me started with that. I'm tilted beyond belief. Like I cannot get over how that game went. The Pittsburgh Steelers were 14.5-point favorites. Dallas has not been able to stop anyone. All that shaped up for Conner to have just a smash game, and the Steelers just fall behind early, like a couple scores early, and they just abandoned the run game. Conner, on like 2 or 3 straight possessions, I didn't even see him out there. They were just running 5 wide receiver sets, completely abandoned the run game. I've never seen anything like that. Was Conner a bad play at his price? Absolutely not. Like, I'll tell you guys if I think I made a mistake. We got so unlucky there with James Conner. He was one of the best plays of the slate. I cannot believe that. Still so angry. And then Edmonds was also one of the top plays of the slate. He played basically the entire game. He had, I think, 25 carries, 70 yards, 3 catches, and 18 yards. It's just a little bit unfortunate that Kyler kept one himself. And I guess we'll talk about it in the Week 10, but I made the mistake of not playing Kyler for my first time all season. I did not play Kyler Murray. And I'm not going to make that mistake again for Week 10. I will be playing Kyler again. We'll talk about that more in a sec. So, quarterback situation, again, I'm a little bit tilted here too. It was originally a Drew Lock. It was Drew Lock, Foles, and Carr for me. Those are the 3 cheap guys to talk about. Talked about those guys in the videos as well as the live streams. And it was originally locked for me, but then throughout the week, I felt a little bit more comfortable with Carr. It's not like Carr played bad, and this is a game that there was a ton of points scored. We just got a little bit unlucky. Or the Raiders, I should say, scored a couple scores early, both on the ground, and then they didn't really have to air it out. So it was just bad game script that they just, they didn't have to throw the ball a ton. So it's not a Carr played bad. We just got a little bit unlucky there with the game script. So yeah, I paired him with Waller, talked about him as, a tight end I really liked. And then the wide receiver situation, there was a bunch of good plays. Keenan Allen was the guy that I liked the most as the spend-up range. Mooney was the guy below 4K. He was my favorite cheap play. Talked about that a bunch. And then Blake with no Calvin Ridley was perfectly fine for his price. Didn't break the slate, but 6 points at mid price is more than enough. So, and then the Giants D, talked about that I was going there in the live stream. They actually paid off for 13 fancy points, but all in all, it was just I picked the wrong cheap quarterback of the 3 guys that I liked. Foles crushed. Drew Lock crushed, and Carr was just nah. And then the James Conner game, it's just like, just shake my head. So, was a few points off from the cash there in terms of, I think, 9 or 10 points, but yeah, different quarterback there, and obviously, Conner having a subpar game would have been a pretty nice cash. And then some, there were some other injuries too in running backs I liked, right? David Johnson got injured right away. Justin Jackson was one of those guys I really liked. also got injured, I think, on the first play. And then Montgomery got a concussion. So there's a lot of injuries. Hope you guys avoided them. Hope you guys all had a good week. And that's really the look back there. So enough of last week. Let's focus on this week. And what I want to do is take a look at the Vegas odds before we get into the player-by-player breakdown. So we have Bengals, Steelers of 47.5 over under. The Steelers are 7.5-point favorites. Texans and Browns, the 54 over-under, definitely one of the highest ones of the week. Browns are 3-point favorites. We have Jags, Packers of 53.5 over-under. The Packers are currently 14-point favorites. We'll talk about Aaron Jones, but I think he's one of the top cash game plays for running back. Eagles, Giants, 44 over-under. Eagles are currently 3.5-point favorites. We might have Miles Sanders back. If he is, I think he does also look like one of the top running back plays of the slate. Bucks, Panthers at 50 over under. The Bucks are 6-point favorites after they just got crushed by the Saints last night. Not a lot of people saw that one coming. Bills, Cardinals. This is the game for me. 56 over under. The Cardinals are 2-point favorites. Already hinted where I'm going at quarterback. So yeah, I want exposure to that game. Broncos, Raiders at 52 over under. Raiders are 5-point favorites. Chargers and Dolphins are 48 over under. Dolphins are 3-point favorites. Tua looked really good after having a not so good start. Bounced back in a big way there against Arizona. I think he's a cheap quarterback we can consider in a decent matchup. 49ers and Saints at 51 over under. The Saints are currently 9-point favorites. Seahawks, Rams, another one I think is stackable here. 55.5 over under. Rams are 1-point favorites. So that's really it for the Vegas odds. Let's talk about quarterback. And yeah, got him preloaded in my lineup. I am not going away from him this week. Kyler Murray, I'm playing him. The matchup is pretty solid here. This is currently the highest over-under of the slate, and it's just his floor is so high. His rushing upside he's been running it a lot more than last year. Last 3 games, 74, 67, and 106 yards in the ground. He's been pretty accurate throwing the ball. This has all the makings for a shootout. The Cardinals' defense has been struggling, which I think is good too, right? Because it's going to force Arizona to air it out more. We have Drake's status up in the air. Doesn't really change a whole lot for me, to be honest. But, yeah, I love Kyler at 8K. Again, I made the mistake of not playing him last week. I will not make that mistake this week. That's the quarterback I'm going with for this week, straight up. Like, I'm not changing. I'm playing Kyler Murray. But let's talk about some other quarterbacks. So, Aaron Rodgers, 7-9. For me, I think it's a guy that I'm not going to look to. The reason being, 14-point favorites. So, I just get worried that they get off to a pretty substantial lead, and then it's just going to be a lot of Aaron Jones in the second half. Now, the matchup is really good, and if you're confident the Jags can score enough with the backup quarterback, then you can consider Rodgers. But no real rushing upside, right? That does kind of hurt his floor a bit. It's probably not for me. The guy that I really like in this game is Aaron Jones. Now, I think Aaron Jones will probably be one of the more popular plays of the slate. So, again, we'll talk this more in like final look and live stream, but, one way to leverage that is, you go quarterback wide receivers. So you go like Rodgers, Devontae Adams, who's really expensive. We'll talk about that more in a sec. Russell Wilson at 7-7. This is also a game that's projected to be a shootout. He's been so consistent. He's a guy that can get it done on the ground a bit too. I think he's a really solid play if you can get to him. Josh Allen on the opposite side of this game, I really like. He went off last week against Seattle. Over 400 yards passing, also had a rushing touchdown as well for almost 40 fantasy points. And again, this game has all the makings for a shootout, so I want a lot of exposure to this game. Now, sure, it's going to be popular, right? There's going to be guys in this game that are going to get a good amount of ownership. But, yeah, I think Josh Allen does look really good, even with the price hike. Deshaun Watson at 6'9", below 7K, I think that's a little bit too cheap. Going up against Cleveland, this is one of the better matchups. And Deshaun Watson lately has been really consistent. 29, 35, 27, and 24 fantasy points. We have David Johnson's status up in the air. If he's out, maybe they rely on the pass game even a little bit more here. The good thing with Houston, with Deshaun Watson at least, is their defense is terrible. So he's always, most of the time he's playing from behind, which is really good for quarterback. I think he makes for really solid play, playable in both formats. Herbert at 6'6". Another guy that's been really consistent. The last 4 weeks, 27, 41, 23, and 26 fantasy points. He's been throwing the ball a ton here. The match against Miami is decent, right? And the price is fair. So I think he's a perfectly fine play in the mid-range. Goff at 6'5", I get it, right? The matchup is amazing here against Seattle. Seattle's not been able to stop anyone. You have a couple guys, 3 guys, I think you can pair them with all 3 receivers, on the more expensive side with Kupp and Woods. But I think Reynolds is a playable, cheap guy. So I think Goff is a fine option here. If you get him, I wish he would have been a little bit cheaper, because, again, no real rushing upside, but the matchup does make him in play here. Probably not going to breeze against San Francisco. Just not confident in the 49ers scoring enough points. Brady, I'll pass. I'm probably not going to get to Big Ben, even in a decent spot. Bridgewater against Tampa Bay. Even though Tampa Bay got lit up yesterday, I'm still not overly excited about that. Wentz at 5'9", just been too up and down for me. If you want to go there in GBPs, fine. Stafford, kind of the same thing. Burrow against Pittsburgh, no thank you. Tua is one of the cheap guys I think we can consider, 5'6". Right? I needed to see a little bit more from him. After that Arizona game, I think you can feel pretty decent about targeting him at this price. 5'6". The matchup is pretty solid here against the Chargers with a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. He even ran the ball a decent amount, 35 yards on the ground. So I think Tua does make for one of the better cheap plays in the slate. I think Drew Lock, once again, kind of kicking myself for not going there, but he got most of that wasn't garbage time, right? They fell behind big time, and then he kind of put up most of that production in the latter part of the second half. But yeah, the price didn't really move. The matchup is good here against the Raiders. I think Drew Lock is, once again, a guy that I'm considering for a cheap option. And then I think that's probably it. Like, if you want to consider Lutton, he actually looked okay. He had 25 fantasy points. The matchup against Green Bay actually isn't terrible. So I think he's an okay guy, but again, you're not going to feel like super confident in it. I guess you can kind of say the same thing about Tua. We haven't seen a ton from them, but at least in consideration here. I'm not going to get to Mullins, and that really, I guess you can throw Alex Smith in there too. He's now the starter for Washington. And the only reason I think you can consider him here is the matchup. Detroit has really, really struggled defensively. So, yeah, there's some punt options at quarterback if you want to punt it, right? I think Smith is viable. I think Lutton, a little bit risky, but I think is in play. Lock, Tua, those are the guys I would consider if you want to spend on a quarterback. But told you guys where I'm going, Kyler Murray. Let's move on to running back. Christian McCaffrey status up in the air, 9K. Well, first of all, I thought he was going to be limited. There was like no limitations. I think he played like close to 80% of the snaps. So coach speak this year, can't really trust it. They said it was going to be they were going to alternate series with him and Mike Davis, and he basically played a majority of the game. Now, again, his status is up in the air. If he is out, I think we can look to a guy like Mike Davis. If he's in this matchup at 9K, the price went up a little bit, but still his floor is so high. So got to keep an eye on this, and we'll talk about there more in the final look as well as on the live stream. Kamara at 8.2. The one reason I'm not overly excited about Kamara here is just because kind of what we saw against Tampa Bay, right? Saints just got off to a big lead, and when they do, they don't really need to utilize him a ton through the air. We also have Michael Thomas back, who obviously is going to take, I think, a little bit of usage away from Kamara. So, I want to target Kamara when I think it's a close game, there's going to be a lot of points scored. This one I could kind of see ugly. Like San Francisco, I'm not confident in their offense at all right now. I think the Saints could get off to an early lead and maybe just kind of, a little bit of Kamara on the ground, a little bit of Latavius Murray. They'll use some Taysom Hill too. So that's a concern there with Kamara for me. Yeah, Aaron Jones right now for me I think is one of the top plays of the slate at 7-1. Matchup's amazing. They're 14-point favorites at home. I think they're going to rely on Aaron Jones a decent amount. He's just so productive with his touches. He's never a guy really going to go for 25 carries, but he doesn't really need to. And again, the matchup is so good. The game script, they're probably been playing from ahead. I really like Aaron Jones at this price. I think at the moment, definitely one of the top running back plays of the slate. James Conner, again, I'm still not over it. I don't know if I will ever get over what happened in that game against Dallas. They just completely abandoned the run game. Now, the ownership is going to drop big time, right? He was one of the top plays of the slate, and he busted. So not a lot of people are going to want to go back to the wall here. But this is, once again, a really good matchup. So do you trust Pittsburgh in going back to the ground game here? I don't know. I don't know if I can pull the trigger on him in cash just off what we saw last game. But I kind of like him as a lower-owned contrarian play in a really good spot. Now, Nick Chubb looking like he's going to be back here. If he is, Chubb and Hunt, it's just hard to get to those guys when they're kind of going to split the workload. The matchup is good, but wouldn't be overly excited about either. Robinson at 6'6". Did have almost 100 yards that last game. I'm not confident fully confident in this Jags offense that they can score enough where they can actually go to the ground game. I feel like this is a game they fall behind early and then maybe abandon the running game a little bit. Jacobs at 6'5", I'm probably not going to go to him. Miles Sanders against the Giants, if he's full go and there's no limitations, I like him a good amount here at this price. He's a guy that's been super, super productive. He's game flow independent. He's a really good pass-catching back. And they've shown when he's out there, he's a bell cow back. So if he's good to go in this game and there's no limitations at all, I like Sanders a lot. I think he is one of the top plays of the slate at the moment. Now, Chase Edmonds, this is dependent on Kenyon Drake, but I love the price here at 6'3". I know, didn't have an amazing week last week, but he basically played the entire game. He had 25 carries, 3 catches, and this is a game that there's projected to be a ton of points scored. So if Drake is out once again, I'm fine going right back to Wolf Edmonds. If people want to jump ship, that's fine. I will probably play him if Drake is out at this price point. Really like him. Again, I think he's also one of the top plays of the slate. The Seattle running back situation is just a stay away from me. Yeah, I'm just not going to play Carson even if he is available. Cincinnati running back situation against Pittsburgh, whether it be Mixon or Gio, I'm not going there. Scott, if Miles Sanders is out, I think you can look to him, but looking like Miles Sanders is going to be back in this one. Antonio Gibson at 5'6", they kind of abandoned the running game. I don't trust it right now at that price. I don't trust the San Francisco running back situation either. I don't really trust the Tampa Bay running back situation either, for Fournette and Jones. So those are just guys that I don't really want to get to on the slate. Now, David Johnson, if he is out, which it looks like he will be, then I think Duke Johnson makes her one of the best running back plays of the slate in a revenge spot against Cleveland. So, yeah, Gio, Ronald Jones, not really looking to them. DeAndre Swift at 5'1", did have a decent week. 13 carries, 64 yards, had 3 catches and 5 targets. But like I said, they still have AP. They gave Kerryon Johnson a good amount of work too. I can't go there with confidence. DJ Dallas, if people played him last week, they got lucky. Homer played a lot more. They even gave Alex Collins work. It was a 3-headed monster. The people that played him got bailed out. He had 7 carries, 1 touchdown, luckily, to bail the people out that played him. Kind of told you guys I was off him last week. Duke Johnson, 5K. I think if David Johnson's out, he would be one of the top running back plays of the slate. 5K. That's too cheap for a guy that will get a majority of the work, and he's shown he's a really good pass-catching back too. So if David Johnson's out, I really like Duke Johnson at that price point. The Chargers running back situation, we'll monitor it. There's a lot of guys still kind of up in the air. I don't know if Eckler is available yet to return, but maybe there's an outside chance. Justin Jackson's had something in the air, so we'll see. Balaj did step into the role with Jackson and played pretty well. That's kind of what I would expected from Jackson. So this is a situation we'll monitor throughout the week. Drake, and this is pretty big. If he plays, I'm not getting to Edmonds. If Drake is out again, I really like Chase Edmonds at that price. In the Rams running back situation, I don't want to deal with situations like that. I just don't. I don't trust coaches. I don't trust the Rams and their running backs with Henderson, Brown, Akers here and there. I don't want to mess with that on this slate. Jackson got injured, unfortunately. I know a lot of people played him. I was pretty high on him as well. Unfortunate injuries suck. And that really wraps up. So running back for me right now, I think the top plays at the beginning of the week are Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders if he plays, Chase Edmonds if Drake is out, and Duke Johnson. Those are probably the 4 running backs that I'm looking to at the moment. Now, of course, things can change. But right now, those are the guys that I really like on this slate. Wide receiver situation. Devontae Adams, 9K. That's a lot. But look at the last 3 weeks. 47, 30, and 36 fantasy points. It is absolutely insane what he is doing. Just having a great year. I don't know why I couldn't get to the word. Just an amazing year, Devontae Adams. My one concern is kind of what I laid out with Aaron Rodgers, that I'm not fully confident that the Jaguars can score enough where the Packers really have to air it out. So I feel a little bit safer with Jones for a couple $1,000s less. But like I said, I think Jones will probably be pretty popular this week. One way to leverage that to get off it is go to a guy like Devontae Adams. DeAndre Hopkins at 7-7. He was a letdown last week. He was. Only 3 catches and 3 targets. I'm not overly concerned about it. and the ownership's going to drop, people are going to look at that and kind of get off him. I'm fine going back to DeAndre Hopkins here. Love his upside. Besides, throw that 1 week out, the last week, 12, 8, 7, 9, 12, 9, 16 targets. He just has enormous upside. Obviously, a guy that can look to in the red zone. This is, again, all the makings for a shootout, and he's the clear guy to pair with Kyler Murray. Now, you don't have to, but Hopkins is the guy that I like the best to pair with Kyler. I think you can go play a naked Kyler Murray if you want to, right? You don't have to pair him with any wide receivers just because of the rushing upside. But, yeah, right now the clear pairing for me is Kyler with DeAndre Hopkins. The Seattle receivers with Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are both fine. Like, Tyler Lockett is a lot cheaper. He was kind of chalky last week. He was kind of a letdown, only 4 catches, 40 yards. He's been a little bit up and down this season. Metcalf's been a little up and down himself, but been a little bit more consistent. I think both are okay options. Stephon Diggs is 7.5. He's just been so consistent at 8, 11, 9, and 12 targets. I think he looks pretty solid here. We'll also talk about John Brown, who had a big week. I think looks like a pretty decent play in the mid-range. But yeah, I like both the Buffalo receivers at the moment. Michael Thomas, the price does look pretty good here at 7.4. This is another situation, though, that I'm not super confident in San Francisco scoring enough where the Saints really have to put the foot on the gas pedal. So that's the slight concern with Michael Thomas. So the price does look good. Keenan Allen, basically been playing him every week. I think he looks really good once again. It's just, like I said, I repeat myself, but targets, targets, targets. And just been so safe. 13, 12, 11 targets. 25, 21, 28 fantasy points. I see no issue why you don't go back to Keenan Allen here. So, yeah, I do like him a good amount there at the price once again. Really do like the Rams receivers here with Kupp and Woods. Another game that has all the makings for a shootout. Kupp had 20 targets last week. I'm probably not going to get that again, but I really like Cooper Kupp. I really like Robert Woods. I think Josh Reynolds is a viable punt option on the slate. So, yeah, I have a good amount of interest in both those Rams receivers. Other options, McLaurin has just been really consistent with bad quarterback play. The price is slowly coming up. I still think he's viable. I think more suited for GPPs. Will Fuller at 6.7. He's had a touchdown, I think, in 6 straight weeks. The matchup is good here. He's a clear pairing with Watson, or he can go Brandon Cooks, who's been getting targeted a ton. I think either way is perfectly fine. Again, the matchup is really good there. Other options, so now we get in kind of the below this range. I'm not over the, like this kind of mid-range wide receivers. Nothing really stands out at the moment for me. Like the Tampa Bay receivers, Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown. Don't really have a strong lean there. Let's see. Galladay's status is up in there. This is obviously something to keep an eye on. If he does play at 5'9", I think also a pretty decent price point. Kirk at 5'7". Has had 8 targets in back-to-back weeks and, 5 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. So he has been pretty consistent recently. And if you don't want to pair Kyler with Hopkins, you can go to Kirk, right? This is kind of the situation with, I guess, Buffalo, right? If you can't get to Diggs, I think John Brown looks good. If you can't get to Hopkins, I think Christian Kirk looks pretty good. He obviously has the big play upside, right? So, yeah, I have interest in Kirk. Jerry Jeudy looked phenomenal last week, had 14 targets, 10 and 14 targets in back-to-back weeks. He's just getting open, and the matchup is good here. I know the price went up, but I still think Jeudy is viable. And if you want to pair him with a cheap Drew Lock, I don't hate that at all, right? Cooks, again, mentioned him. The targets, 12, 9, 9, and 9 targets. I think he still looks pretty good at this price point. I think a little bit underpriced in a great matchup. Other options, yeah, so mention John Brown. I think he looks good, right? He was dealing with some injuries, but back to what we expect from John Brown. 8 catches, 11 targets, kind of what we saw early in the year when he was healthy. The price did come up a little bit, but like I said, if you can't get to Diggs, I think John Brown looks like a pretty good option here in the mid-range. Marvin Jones, I guess kind of dependent on Galladay news. If Galladay's out, I would like Marvin Jones a little bit more there at his price. Other options here, Devontae Parker is kind of the clear guy to pair with Tua if that's the direction you want to go. We have Preston Williams' status up in the air. If he's out, Parker's probably going to get targeted a decent amount, and he's the guy I think you can feel the most comfortable pairing with Tua. So, yeah, I think Devontae does look pretty good at his current price. Other options here at wide receiver, again, Preston Williams, you got to monitor that. Jalen Reagor at 4.2, I think looks okay. His first game back from a while had 3 catches, 6 targets. You know, the matchup is okay here. The price point is cheap enough. I think he's obviously a guy that has upside. They want to give him the ball, so I think he's in consideration as a cheap option. Richie James, I know he had that amazing week, 9 catches on 13 targets for almost 200 yards. Would not expect that again. Still think he's in play, but I'm a little bit worried that he's going to be more popular than I think he should be. Other options, a wide receiver. So KJ Hamler, a little bit tilted here because I was on him to begin the week and wasn't super confident when Tim Patrick was playing. I wanted to see his role when Patrick played. Well, he had 6 catches and 10 targets. So clearly he's going to be a part of this offense. He's a cheap wide. He's below 4K in a good matchup. I do like KJ Hamler a good amount here for value. I think he does look like one of the better plays below 4K. Fitzgerald, I think, is fine. He's not really going to break the slate, but if you need someone super cheap, I don't think he's going to kill you. Again, this is the highest over-under. He's at 7, 4, 8, and 5 targets. Again, I think he's fine at that price. Other cheaper options, yeah. So I mentioned Josh Reynolds at 3.5K. He's at 8 and 9 targets in back-to-back games. He is playing the majority of the game, and this is a matchup against Seattle that is really, really good. So I think Josh Reynolds does look like a pretty decent value option. Last 3 games, 12, 15, and 8 fantasy points. More than enough at 3.5. So definitely have consideration for Reynolds there at his current price. And I think that really wraps up for wide receiver. So let's move on to tight end, and then we can get out of here. So Kittle, obviously going to be out basically the entire year. Waller against Denver, I think, is okay at that price point. Hawkinson, if Galladay is out, in the 2 games that Galladay basically has been injured, 10 and 8 targets. I think he would become more viable if there's no Galladay. Font dealing with an injury, got to keep an eye on that. If he does play, I think he looks okay at that price point. Evan Ingram, so it was Ingram, it was Hayden Hurst, and it was Hunter Henry, the kind of cash game tight ends I talked about. I think all 3 were pretty good. I think Henry was the worst of the 3, but Ingram had a pretty nice day. Hayden Hurst did as well. Back-to-back, or last 3 weeks for Evan Ingram, 9, 10, and 10 targets. So they clearly want to get this guy the ball. The price didn't really move a whole lot. So I think Evan Ingram is, once again, a pretty decent player in the mid-range. Don't mind Ebron in a good matchup. I do like Dallas Goedert a good amount here. Still no Zach Ertz. Did only have 1 catch and 1 target last week, but I'm not overly concerned about that. The first 2 weeks of the season, 8 and 9 targets, and those are with Ertz playing. So I think Dallas Goedert does look like one of the better cheap tight end plays at his price. And Hunter Henry, he was somewhat of a letdown, only had 4 catches, 33 yards, but once again, it is viable. He's a guy that's going to be playing a ton. The price point's fair, matchup's decent. Cheaper tight end, so San Francisco tight end situation. Dwally did play majority of the game, had 3 catches, but Reed is getting more and more healthy. We'll see if his snaps go up. I think he only played like 12 snaps, 13 offensive snaps that last game. But he is clearly the better pass-catching tight end, so we'll see if his snaps do go up. If they do, I think he looks like a decent cheap option there at that price. Logan Thomas is always someone I think is in consideration. Had 6 targets last week. The matchup is really solid here against Detroit. He's still running a ton of routes. I think he's someone you can look to if you need a punt tight end. And that probably wraps up for me. And yeah, defense, we'll talk about them more in the final look and in the live stream, guys. So that's going to wrap it up for the video. If you guys have been enjoying the content so far, again, I would really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos and when I go live. Again, we have a ton of content coming out. I'll be live later tonight for Jets Bills Masters video coming up right after this. Be on the lookout for that. So yeah, thanks again, guys. I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you all later.